Logan and Joe O'Brien.
Hi, Wahenya! Welcome,
buddy,
to Glass Cannon Radio, where the circle of life is alive and well. We are celebrating Earth Day here on the Glass Cannon Radio today. I'm Jared Logan. This is Joe O'Brien. Joe, have you gotten out in nature recently? Have you experienced the Earth in any way?
Yes. And I mean, today is a big turning point. It feels like on the East Coast, it's April 23rd, and I think it's turning, dude. I think it's like today, this morning, I walked my kids to school, and it felt like we have finally returned to what LA has all the time. So yeah, it was like 62 degrees, sun shining, just gorgeous. Perfect weather. And so yeah, I think this is absolutely a perfect time of year to celebrate Earth Day. Yes, I love getting out in nature when the spring calls. I love it.
Yeah, that's lovely. LA is actually a nightmare climate.
I always imagine it as paradise.
It'll be like 50, which feels really cold to us. And it'll be like 50 and gray. And then no matter what, from 2 to 5, the scorching hot eye of God parts the mists and fries everybody like an egg. And then around 5 o'clock, it's like, okay, back to gray bullshit. And that's what's happening today. And then in the summer, it's just the scorching hot eye of God all the time. It just never goes away.
I've got family in Santa Clarita and that area up there, kind of like that high desert-ish area. And there were days I remember when I would visit in the summer where I'd be like, I'm going to go out for a jog. And a mile in, I would just be like, I'm going to die. Like I had no idea what I was getting myself into. It's a very different sun out there. It's a very, very different sun out there.
I'm trying to think the last time I kind of went out in nature and did something natural. I guess I go on my daughter's in Cub Scouts, so I've gone on little hikes with them.
That's a shame. You should do it more. LA has great hiking, doesn't it? Yeah. Great. There's mountains little so parks close here. And
yeah. I'm more of a indoor kid who's constantly playing role-playing games on my computer in my garage.
Well, one of my favorite things in the world is hiking. It's one of my favorite hobbies. And so I'm very excited to talk about it today. And why don't you tell me what we're going to do today? Because we're getting into all aspects of nature.
Today is hiking, all hiking.
All hiking. It's all trail analysis.
Yes, the Appalachian Trail, Griffith Park Observatory, the greatest hikes in history. Today, in honor of Earth Day, we're going to be talking all things Druid. In a little bit, we're going to bring out Mary Lou, who plays a Druid on Blood of the Wild. Mary Lou's going to talk to us about Druids. Then we're going to get into Druid Builds for Pathfinder 2e. And maybe you could throw in your D&D there if you want to. After that, I've prepared a lecture on the factual, historical Druidic tradition.
Awesome. I'm so excited for that. So excited.
Then we're going to talk video games, a little bit of the new Oblivion Remaster.
Big news in the video game world. Yes, just released yesterday.
And then we're going to close on our favorite Fae. We're going to talk about Fae.
Oh, man.
The otherworldly beings of Tir Nanug.
It's going to be awesome and very... obviously, we have a wonderful guest coming on here in a minute with Mary Lou, and then... It's going to be a caller-heavy show. I just feel it. I feel it's going to be a caller-heavy show because this is going to be fun to hear people's build ideas, and then also when it comes to Fae, I think people are like super into all different kinds of Fae, and I'd love to hear the caller's take on that.
Probably a lot of Akatar fans out there.
Perhaps.
You know what that is?
How do they call into the show?
A Court of Thorn and Roses. It's a series of books where Fae creatures have sex.
Yikes.
Sounds like a personal problem. Maybe there's ACOTAR fans out there. Yeah, I'm super into all of this. And the Druid history was really interesting. I can't wait to share
awesome.
that.
I'm psyched to hear about that. But if you do want to call into the show, you just go to jointhenaish.com. You can find access to our Discord server through that. And you have to become a member of the Naish in order to do that. But you can get a free membership by using code GCN30 at checkout. You can get a free membership 30-day trial to try it out. And you can literally jump onto the show today. We use the Discord server to bring on callers and have them talk live and join us on the show and get involved in the conversation. So hop in, do that, check it out. And if you're listening to this after the fact, we do these on Wednesdays. Wednesdays live at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Yep. It's live on Twitch and on Discord. So you can come join in either one of those. You can hear the show there. You could watch the show on Twitch. But either way, you can come and check us out live and become part of the show. We'd love to have you.
And get on here and argue with us, because I'm going to argue with you.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what we could argue about regarding Druids, but I'd love it if someone was like, "You've got Druids all wrong, you idiots."
I know what we can argue about regarding Fae, so I'm excited for that part. Get ready for some hot takes from Joey.
You have hot takes on the Fae?
I have hot takes on the Fae. All right, so first and foremost, I mean, could you have a better start to a show on Earth Day if you're talking about Druids, you're going to talk about animals, you're going to talk about in real life and in gaming? I couldn't even imagine a better person to have join us for this. So first joining us in Discord, and then we're going to bring them right up here to the show. Please welcome, from Blood of the Wild and many other things on the Glass Cannon Network, the wonderful Mary Lou. Mary Lou!
Hello!
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to have you here with us. Oh, this is wonderful.
Joe, point of order. I think Earth Day was yesterday.
I know. I'm sorry. It was yesterday. We're celebrating it today. It says it right on our screen here.
And also
it was
at
April
midnight,
22nd,
it's the new day.
Yeah.
I just want to be a very pedantic about dates. Yes.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with being accurate.
Something the Earth cares a lot about is dates.
I'm passionate about the Julian calendar.
Yeah, for sure.
Welcome, Mary Lou.
I'm here for Druids. I'm here for Druids. I came dressed.
Oh, nice!
That's a cool shirt.
Yeah, so the shirt.
I'm jealous of that shirt.
All right, hold on. Do that again. Do that again. I want to get a better angle on this and description. All right, so for our audio listeners, it's like a tree man whose tree is kind of like a hammock, like laying in a tree hammock, and through that hammock you see a misty forest in the evening and the moon in the distance. Gorgeous.
A crescent moon.
Crescent moon, but it's like a vertical crescent. It's crescent at the top, which you never see on Earth, right? So, rarely at least. That's very interesting. Well done, Mary.
You only see that in Lands of Fantasy and Adventure.
It does.
It is a
looks like a portal. Yeah.
Because the tree is like a circle. That's amazing.
Skid has joined us on Twitch chat and calls your shirt tremendous.
Thank you, Skidly.
You say Skid. Bottle cap. Listener cap for Skid today. Mary Lou, thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited to have you here.
I'm happy to be
before
here.
we get into the whole Druid thing, let's talk about nature. We banted about it for a second. I said I love hiking. Jared said he's an inside cat. What are you generally? Do you like getting out in nature? I know you're a cat owner. Tell us about your relationship with nature.
So I actually do. I love nature. I'm not I'm not a real clean person. I don't mind getting in the dirt and in the sand and playing with sticks and bugs and stuff. But
Mary Lou
I am incredibly
the
lazy.
same relationship to nature as my children.
Yeah.
You just get muddy on the ground.
Yeah, I like when there's mud on the ground. It's kind of fun. But I'm very lazy and I don't own a ton of camping gear. And so I don't get out there as much as I mayhaps could.
Have you been camping?
So I camp now, but for my LARP. I camp for my LARP.
The LARP involves camping.
It does indeed. It's a little more glamping than camping, but it's for sure camping. We're in tents and we're cooking on stoves and stuff.
We may talk more about LARPing next week.
Hell yeah.
So you have some
just
relationship
to let
with
people
the
know
outdoors.
before we dive deeper into it. Next week's going to be a fun week. I will not be here next week. This is my 15th Glass Cannon Radio. It'll be the first one that I miss due to a recording conflict. So I have to record something else at that time. So I can't do Glass Cannon Radio. But Mary Lou is going to guest host in my place. So we're going to have a Jared and Mary Lou run Glass Cannon Radio next week.
I'm very excited.
I think they'll definitely get into some LARPs. But outside of
Joe's
that,
going to
we'll see
be
what else
busy
happens.
putting down some tracks for his musical album.
That's right.
A Cup of
Recording.
Joe. So we're getting ready to hear
it's
those.
Your experimental
those
jazz.
songs.
My experimental jazz album. That's right. That's right.
And we're really proud of you for pursuing this sort
Thank
of
you.
solo side project.
How's it going learning the saxophone?
I love you
Because I
guys.
knew you were worried about that.
It has been going better than expected. Better than expected.
I'm so glad.
Yeah,
Great.
really hitting those high notes better than I expected. So
Can't wait
get
to
ready
hear
for
the
my
album.
solo saxophone jazz album coming out soon.
We're really excited.
We don't have a release date
We're
yet.
really excited.
Joe is always mentioning how much he loves jazz, and the rest
Right.
of us kind of wait for him to walk away, and then we kind of roll our eyes at each other. But you're committing, and I appreciate
You
that.
love
And I'm
jazz.
committing to this bit. I'm
Yes, you
committing
are.
to this bit.
It's still going. Jared, what is among all? I know you don't do it a lot, but what stands out to you as like the most awe-inspiring or interesting or I don't know, most powerful moment you've experienced in nature? Or one of them, whether it's seeing a beautiful sight or being, seeing an eclipse, right? Like, is there anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, when I was in Hawaii, we went snorkeling. It was my first time ever doing that. They took us way out into the ocean and we jumped off a boat and we looked down in the water and I couldn't believe that I saw thousands and thousands of colorful fish just kind of living down there,
Like a
swimming around my
screensaver.
ankles, all different types, like this beautiful rainbow of fish. And I laughed my ass off because I don't know, that's how I was experiencing joy that day. And my wife was a little worried about me, but that's how delighted I was to see that.
It's pretty
That's
miraculous, I would say, in a way, when you don't, like, you never see it. It's always under that water, right? So you just see water. That's all you see ever.
Yeah.
And the first time that you go to a tropical place like that and put that mask underwater, and it's like an alien world, like an entire world you never knew existed. And it's so vibrant and there's so much life and so colorful. So yeah, that's a really good one. What about you, Mary Lou? Is there a moment that stands out or a place?
Yeah. I live in California, but I was born and raised in Southern California. And one time did a road trip through the Avenue of the Giants, which is like redwood country.
Oh, like
And,
Northern
like-
California, redwood country?
Northern
Yeah.
California. And I was coming down from Seattle or Portland or something on a road trip, and we decided to go through the Avenue of the Giants, which is just this road that takes you through a bunch of big trees. And like, you think you get it, right? You're like, yeah, big tree. Okay, that'll be fun.
Mhm.
And then you see exactly how big the trees are.
Yeah.
They're big.
Yes. They're like skyscrapers.
They're so big, and they're so like
Well, in order to be that big, they have
They
to be
gotta
so
be-
wide.
big. Yeah.
Yeah.
To be that tall, they got to be that wide. It is. And then some of them fall over and you see their like root system lifted up and it's like like a house.
Yeah.
And and there are just hundreds of them.
Right. If one comes to the point where it falls over and doesn't manage to break or splinter and just falls over, it'll create like a 15 to 20 foot hole in the earth, like a dangerous hole that like you could fall into. So it's amazing how large and embedded
Truly.
in the earth they are.
Yeah.
That's
A
good one.
dangerous
That's a good
hole.
one.
If you guys walk away with one thing today from the show, think of the phrase "a dangerous hole."
Dangerous hole. Well, I'll do one real quick because mine, I've done a ton of hikes in a ton of different places, and there's so many beautiful ones I could mention. But one that always stands out to me, and it's not far from where you were in the Redwoods, Mary Lou. Just keep going up. into the PNW, and for me, it was the time that I hiked Mount St. Helens. So I was, so I didn't actually hike the mountain. So I was like right near there. It's a Mount St. Helens hike, but it's not on the actual mountain. I was with Nick Lowe and our buddy Land Keith, who people know from an episode a very long time ago. But this is like 15 years ago. We did this trip with some more friends, and we did this hike. And you set out from the visitor center at Mount St. Helens, and I remember being like, not interested. Like we had as a group done an itinerary, and I was just like, Mount St. Helens is so front door. It's like the most touristy place you can imagine. Like, let's just go to, Mount Hood or something like that. We'll go to Rainy or whatever. I was like, Mount St. Helens was the lowest on my list. Well, we do this hike, and basically you walk along the edge of another sort of mountain, just not as big as Mount St. Helens, and you come around until you're looking at this unbelievable view directly into the maw of like where it blew and collapsed and fell and everything. And you're far enough away that you can see the whole thing, but it takes up almost all of your vision, and you can see all the land around it and how blasted it is. And is just now 25 at that time, 25, 30 years later, starting to grow back. Like
I feel like if I ever went to that crater, I would throw in my wedding ring.
Okay.
How would your wife feel about that?
Because like Mount Doom.
Yeah.
My wedding ring kind of looks a little like the one ring.
To the fires of Mount Doom.
Yeah.
My wedding ring is actually, it was custom made by a friend of mine and is modeled off of the One Ring. It's like from the film. It's a little thinner, but it's exactly cut like the One Ring. It doesn't have any
Mary Lou, where's your wedding ring?
Ask hot boyfriend.
Oh my God. They're talking to an unmarried woman?
Sorry.
I'm not allowed to do that according to my religion.
Too late.
Mother,
you already
I'm
did.
sorry.
Hell.
Mother.
Anyway,
Straight to hell.
The power of nature on display there. It was one of the coolest places I've ever been.
That's crazy.
Let's talk
Druids.
Let's talk Druids, Mary Lou. So you start playing Pathfinder 2e with us in Blood of the Wild for the first time, and you elect to be a Druid. This is your first character in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Talk to us about why. Why Druid, and why did you go down that path?
Well, to be honest, it was because I had an idea for a character, and it was exactly what Raga is. A sort of feral child raised by polar bears. And
so you had
Jared
this idea before you looked at the book, before you looked at like Druid Builds. Okay, great.
Yeah. When we talked about this sort of like Ice Age sort of vibe place, that was the idea that came to me. And I've talked about this on other shows, but like nothing makes me more creative than limits. Like I love being told like you have to play this class, or like this is a thing about you. I love being in improv they're called gifts, and to me I love gifts, but sometimes I get an idea in my head and I just like can't get rid of it. And this is one time that I like got this real idea deeply lodged in there and was like, Jared, we got to make it happen. And so the classes that we thought about were based on other parts of the character. It was obvious it was either Druid or Witch, if you remember that.
Yep.
And then we talked about it more, and Witch seemed super cool. And I'm still into the Witch.
Oh, I'm sure we'll see a Mary Lou Witch one day. I'm sure we will.
I hope so. Oh, I did. I actually did play a witch in the Pathfinder when we did like a Pathfinder tutorial when I played Charlotte Ann. And you were the Sylvan Loyal.
Right. Charlotte Ann.
The right.
Right.
Yeah. Something, it was the right of
But that was,
something.
Did that air? Or was that behind the scenes? That
aired.
Okay, I don't even remember what that was.
But it was like a
but
long
I remember
one shot.
the character Charlotte
Troy
Ann.
ran it. Yeah. It was a stream. Yeah, it was a stream. And so speaking of witches.
Joe has no memory of this.
They all
You were in it,
They
Joe.
all run together.
Joe, you were there.
Who did I play, Naish? Who did I play in?
You said a lot of pretty offensive. You said a lot of pretty offensive stuff that day.
Yes, I was Dr. Llewellyn Pierce, who, and as soon as I said his name, Troy and Matthew were like, "Did you say Dr. Piss?" And then they just called me Dr. Piss the whole game. Now I remember.
Indeed, exactly. Yeah, it was awesome.
Oh, charming.
Dr. Piss. That was super fun. And so I finally I got to play a witch then, but Charlotte Ann is perfect and I would bring her back 10,000 times. But it became pretty obvious pretty quickly that she just had to be a druid, just based on the character and based on like what made sense. And then I could have like an animal companion that's a polar bear, like my baby brother. Like it was obvious. And so really I came to druid not for the class, but for the flavor, like how it fit my character. But I've come to really like love the druid as a class in any game because it's a jack of all trades, right? It's a magic caster, but it can also be melee combat, but it can also be a healer.
It can be ranged damage. It can be melee damage. It can be.
They're good scouts. They're usually good scouts because they usually get those animal forms. Yeah.
They can be good trackers. They can be good. They're very perceptive,
they can be very stealthy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
would you say they're not awesome at any one thing, but they're good at a lot of things? Or I mean, I don't think that. I'm just asking the question.
I would ask the chat to correct me, right? Fight me, bitch. We let Jared and I are on the same page that we love when people are like, you're wrong. Because we like that. It's fun. But yeah, I actually would say that. At least I felt it the way that I played a druid. I do remember I didn't like max out her spellcasting modifier at the beginning because I had a couple feats that like I just really wanted and couldn't get all like maxed out wisdom at character creation, which made me like +1 behind what I possibly could be if I was totally min-maxed. And there were a couple levels that I really felt like I couldn't hit or I couldn't do much. And then there was, Olog doing 30 points of damage, and AWOL, pew, pew, hitting and Yelka doing her thing. And I just like could not hit. But I think the benefits outweigh that, right? Of just like being able to do so many different things. I do think I've been like super helpful to the party, to the tip of the spear.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't
but what's interesting is like you've been helpful in several combats in several different ways without ever being like Olog damage, right? But you also have been the number one diplomacy character, like the face. Now that helps that this happens to be set in a very wild campaign. Like the campaign is in a very wild landscape with people that speak
lots
that
of
language of animals and also just straight up animals, right?
Animals.
Like you have to sort of
we
like
gotta
negotiate
talk to those
with.
animals.
Yeah, and that has been a really, really awesome part of your character that I really love as well. And yeah, so the value is absolutely there. My question is, so what about this? And this is for both of you, just to kind of talk it out. And we're going to take some callers here in a second. We'd love you guys to weigh in. Are druids jack of all trades and masters of none in the sense, let me just say that neither one of those is better than the other. It's not better to be a master at something and a jack of all trades is less than. That's not the case. But I'm curious if druids are the best class at any one thing. I can't think of what that is. Please call in and let us know if there is one thing that they are better at than anyone else. Pardon me, in terms of party roles.
Or is that like just the way that I'm playing it and like you could play it in a different way, if with a different build?
Well, that's getting to my question, which is it seems like you can play them so many ways, but is that sort of variety available while you're in game at 5th level? Or is that variety really more available before you begin the character? and you can fit any role. But then once you start building that, you're kind of in that role. You know what I mean? Now, I think that you could always do a little healing and a little powerful offensive spell casting. That sort of flexibility is out there. But if you're kind of spec'd to be a healer, can you still do offensive spell casting? Call in, let us know what you think. Mary Lou, what do you think now, you're now 7 levels in to this druid?
Yeah.
Do you feel, and we'll talk about your build in a second, but do you feel that you have a lot of different ways to contribute, or do you feel like your party role is pretty set?
I think my party role is set in that I'm a swing.
You're a utility player, we would say in baseball. Like you can play a bunch of different positions when needed. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm not the designated hitter, right? I feel like that's was our damage caster, damage dealer, which was Olag, now Herod. And I'm not exactly a healer, but I can, right? Yeah, I think I'm a real good utility player. And because I'm a prepared caster, if I put in the work, I can really prepare myself to be especially good for different situations. If I know what situation is coming up, right?
Sure,
so,
which is always a tough part. But you then also have the ability to turn into a small pest, a cat or a rodent or something like that, and explore, investigate, do recon better than maybe even a highly spec'd rogue. Yeah. Because you could slip into areas others might not be able to. And you
can remember to prepare true name. And then,
hey, I don't want to talk about that.
Now he's going to bring up shit. Now he's going to bring up table drama.
And that's when I learned to lie.
If you know, you know, Blood of the Wild fans.
If you know,
that's when I learned a really valuable lesson, which is just lie. But I think my role is set in that I'm flexible, and we can put me where we need me. I'm never going to do the most damage, but I can maybe do damage that takes advantage of weaknesses.
And you can also, and this is no small thing, at any time, you can make your animal companion a flanking partner for another melee character, which is huge.
Oh, yeah, that's huge.
And not to mention the fact that on occasion, your animal companion can do some serious damage. Now, the rolls kind of have to go your way, but...
I was thinking, the druid, if takes an animal companion, such a good class for Pathfinder because you know what to do with your actions. You're not wasting actions. You're not taking that -5 attack. You're using two actions for the spell and then sending Baba to attack something, Yeah.
In fact, you are in a way a little you can be a little action starved. But as you level up and you get mature animal companion, that's awesome. You almost get 4 actions around, which is crazy. Compared to some other classes. And you can if you add on to that around that time, you also have access to perhaps another spellcaster in your party, if your party's built like that, might have haste. If you get hasted and get an extra stride or strike that you can use, you could command, move, and cast a 2-action spell.
Cast a spell.
And then your animal companion gets 2 actions. So that's just amazing.
It's huge.
I mean,
so he can do
butter.
damage.
That's just butter.
Yeah, that's butter, baby.
That's butter on the grill right there.
That's peanut butter on the grill, baby.
Peanut butter on the grill.
Why are you putting peanut butter all over my grill?
Crunchy peanut butter on the grill.
That is going to be a bitch to clean. Let's.
He can do damage, but he can also soak up damage too.
Right? Exactly. He's a target.
Right.
A target.
Even a target is so huge.
It's going to be so sad when he dies. It's going to be really sad when Baba dies. That's going to be awful.
That one is.
Don't even say that. Don't even say that. I will come to your house. I know where you live.
That is kind of a scary thing because I'm not 100% sure, and I don't really want to know where we cap out on Blood of the Wild. But in doing some of my Druid research, word on the street appears to be that there's that the animal companions can get into some danger in double-digit levels, that they can be kind of crushed by enemies at those levels, and so
do they get
there's some
death saves? Do animal companions get dying 1 to 4?
I think
they just die?
I don't know off the top of my head. I think they do, but
I think they
chat. Yeah.
I mean,
Princess is getting upset.
By the book, the GM can give dying 1 or 2 to literally anyone they want. So they can give that to any enemy. It's even though it says default is enemies don't get that. A GM, it says, can do that whenever they want. So I would think you
My
could
house rule, though, is that at 0 hit points, an animal companion dies. So that's going to be tough when that happens.
That's your house rule? Well, what happens to the house rule when I burn down your house?
Oh, my family has no place to live.
Yeah. So I would consider that as a potential consequence.
All right, we'll do death saves for the animal companion then.
Thank you.
You're a class act.
Hopefully
Jared.
it never comes to that.
I really hope it never comes to that. I would lose it.
Oh, that's tough. That would be tough. All right, let's
when
take
Baba goes down?
By the way, you're also talking to a person here who has lost multiple animal companions. And we'll talk about my druid in a second, which was my longest running character before we started the Glass Cannon Network. Love druids. Let's take a caller. Let's bring up Singing Zombies. Singing Zombies, what did you want to add in on the druid conversation?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
So my understanding is that druids have always kind of had the fantasy of being a jack of all trades, and people love the fantasy of animal shaping into an animal, being friends with animals, casting with the power of nature, and the systems of D&D and Pathfinder, like First Edition, have always been in great danger of like making them too good at all of them at the same time. So historically, they've been kind of full caster, can wild shape into a fighter, can bring another fighter, and they've been very, very good. Second edition Pathfinder is honestly one of the first systems where it said, okay, you can do these things, but focus.
Not at the same time.
Pick what you want to be good at. They're a full caster no matter what, though. So that's kind of their baseline power is they get the same progression. Their fireballs are just as good as a wizard's fireballs. There's no difference.
Yeah,
that part.
You know, I was just playing 5e with my friend who played a druid in 5e, and at very early levels, he was able to just turn into a spider, and then he just walked as a spider through my whole dungeon and found out what was in every room. And I was like looking it up, like, there's no way you can do this. And then he could. It's 5e makes characters so powerful sometimes. I'd say
I can't say that
powerful.
with authority, but talking tier lists and how good Druid is, I've been told in 5e Druids are also probably S tier. Very, very good.
Top shelf. Best class.
So they're a class that's always dangerously too good because the fantasy allure is they can do all the things. So then at that point, second edition is one of the few systems I first saw that tried to rein in the fact that they shouldn't be good at all of them at the same time.
Yeah.
And if you take the animal companion feats and focus on the animal companion's first attack is always going to be better than everyone else's second attack. And then they are a bag of hit points. They provide flanking. They give you like battlefield presence. And that is so innately powerful. Animal companions have always been one of the most difficult things to balance well in any system because they give you a second
character
unit. Yeah, character.
Yeah.
And then 2E as well, you can focus on the wild shaping feats. There's an entire feat line around wild shaping.
When I was looking at people's arbitrary ranking of druid builds or whatever, a lot of people were coming in at wild shaped druid being the most powerful druid.
Yeah.
That one's right to me
insane.
because you can't cast spells while wild shape. That is one of the things where I think in second edition trying to rein back the druid, it's actually really tough to utilize the full but you could also build a druid that most of the spells they focus on casting out of combat. They have the ability to prepare any common spell from the primal list. They are so flexible. Like for example, to try not to spoil, but like you could get into a situation where your party could be saved by Cleanse Affliction, and no one thought to take this spell. No one thought to buy any scrolls of this spell. But if it comes up, the druid can just be like, oh, you know what? I'm going to prepare that tomorrow before someone gets really, really, really sick.
Yeah, hopefully it never comes up.
Yeah,
hopefully it never comes up.
To respond to that really
Singing,
fast.
Good start to the show. Thanks for calling in. That was great.
That was awesome. Singing Zombies. I think you bringing up the point of you can prepare any common spell on the primal list. Like that is both a strength and a weakness in a meta way, because at least it was for me, because I was so overwhelmed by the sheer
you
number
said you
of
thrive
spells.
on limitations. You thrive
Yeah.
the gift of limited choices. Having the whole primal list, which by the way is considered by some to be the best spell list. If you know,
It's
they're all
awesome.
they're all great, but like primal seems to have the most utility in the most different areas, from healing, you know, cleansing, damaging, divination type stuff, illusory, and what do you call it? And then wild shaping, which has so many applications in and of itself. The primal spell list is just so freaking
It's
cool.
insane.
It's sounding like Druid is the best class. Surely there are classes that are better, right?
Well, this is what I want to hear from a caller. We're gonna keep bringing people up. I want people to tell me if there is one thing, party roll wise, the Druid does
the
better
Druid
than
is
any other
best
class,
at.
because I don't think there is.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I
So
don't think
I'm
so.
curious, because if you find me that, then maybe I will say Druid is by far the best class, but I don't know that for 100%. Let's bring up Fisco. Fisco's here, friend of the show. Fisco, if you see the notification there, come on up.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hey, I can.
Yes.
How you doing?
What's
Yay.
up?
Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. Hi guys.
Hi. So
Hi.
excited to have you.
I have to say Druid is the best at everything because they're the best at everything, but Druids are the best at battlefield control, hands down.
Okay.
Hands down.
Battlefield
All
control
right. Talk
area.
to me.
Yeah.
Through spells, or you
So-
mean through their animal companion? How
all
so?
of it. Both. So if you have an animal companion and you have, let me find the name of my favorite spell, Scatter Scree, which is
Yes.
one of the
A
best
cantrip.
spells. It's just a cantrip, so you can do it constantly. I can sit in the back. Half my spells are heal spells. The other half are buff and battlefield control. I send in my animal companion, and I just sit back and like twiddle my fingers and wait for people to do stupid shit. And then I put them in a corner. They can't get out of any kind of flanking. They can't, and then they get debuffed constantly. So like I don't do any damage whatsoever, but everyone else does 2 or 3 times the amount of damage they would have done otherwise, especially with a rogue.
So it
It's
sounds like Fisco
unbelievable.
limit yourself. You say, I'm going to take buffs and debuffs and heals for my spells. I'm not going to worry about doing direct damage spells, right?
Yeah, that's not my job.
Yeah, interesting.
And so the argument here, I think, in terms of party roles, is that the Druid
Taking notes.
is the best support class. Like nobody
by
can
far,
match
for me.
their support, which is a role in and of itself and is very important.
Yep.
That is very interesting. Yeah, if you eschew, and I think that a lot of players struggle with that. A lot of players are. Now look, if you just want to do damage, that's the game you want to play. That's great. You know, build your whatever class. A lot of different ways to get to damage, including through Druids. But if you have a player in your group that is willing to truly be that support, because you'll see people will be like, oh yeah, I'll be a buffer, I'll be a debuffer, that sounds cool. And then they get several sessions in and they're like, you know what, I really do want to deal damage. Like I want that thrill of killing something myself. That could be tough to balance. But if you have somebody that is fine without that, like it sounds like you are, man, that really buffs the whole party in a huge way.
It does. I think it helps if you like math, because you can sit while everybody else is playing and figure out exactly how much damage you've done because you've provided that opportunity. Like this person can't step out because Scatter Scree is there. You know, these people can't see because everybody in the party has dark vision, and I threw darkness on the entire. I mean, we wiped almost a mini boss because I threw darkness in the room, and all of our characters had dark vision, and we just went in and really made Squid mad because he wanted to injure us at all. Like I don't think one of us got hit because of it.
Wow,
it was
that's
so
great.
fun.
Cool.
So
And I can have 3 to 6 turns in my turn, like actions, because I have my animal companion and I have a familiar. So, and my
What kind of
familiar
animal is your
carry
animal
around healing
companion? What
potions.
kind of animal is it?
A badger, and she is
A badger.
the best.
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
Honey
she's
badger.
gigantic now. I'm a kobold, so I can ride on her. If I want to stealth the badger stealth,
Kobold riding a badger?
It's
That's
badass.
amazing.
pretty freaking
She's
cool.
badass. Yeah.
That's
And she
awesome.
gives mushroom pies to everybody.
Pour one out for my badger that I had as a druid, Ben Vereen.
Oh, wait, you had a
the
badger
Wolverine.
too, Joe?
Benverine.
Ben Vereen, the Wolverine, unfortunately bit it in a campaign.
Incredible.
Yep, that was a tough one. Loved that maniac. I love how badgers just, at least in 1E, they had that trait where it's literally like Wolverine, like the Marvel character. When they get hit, they obsessively attack the target until it's dead or they're dead, and they will not do anything else. Like, it was so fun.
That's awesome.
And their stats all go up. They get rage, the benefits of rage. It was really fun.
That's awesome.
Anyway, Fisco, thank you for the call.
Thanks,
Good
Fisco.
call.
I still really want to make a druid or like someone with a hawk. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just
That'd be
really
so
obsessed
cool.
with this idea. Someday I want to have a character with like a hawk that attacks.
Well, I was
Like
while
the
I was
Bonds
researching for
Mage
this.
in-
While I was researching for this episode, Jared, I came across this guide called "The Magnificent Menagerie" by Ritun, Ritunn. They are
Okay.
Shadow Decord on Discord. They created a really in-depth. I mean, this thing is long, dude. Just on familiars. A really long guide on familiars. And I was like, oh, this looks super interesting. It's so detailed and really explains kind of all the value they can have if they're built in certain ways. So yeah, we'll get to more callers in a second. I want to hear if anybody went down that Leshy familiar route. So there's a build for it that utilizes a Leshy familiar. I haven't seen anybody do this yet. At least I think somebody did in one of our Gen Con games, but not, in the main games that we play. And I hear that can be very powerful. So I'm curious about that. Let's bring Sweet Threat up here to join us. Sweet Threat, you want to join the convo on Druids? Are you there?
Hey guys.
Hey, how are you?
What's up?
Hey there. Last time I called in, I was heading out the door, going to dinner. So I had way better time today.
Oh, brilliant.
Oh, good.
Where are
I'm
you
glad you
calling
don't have
from?
to leave. I'm glad we're not interrupting your schedule.
No, I was just really.
But you
rushed
know
and
what?
really
I have
wanted to
something to
that
get to in
conversation.
10 minutes, so I hope before we keep this short, you won't be offended.
Hey, Jared, if you have to go, it's completely understandable.
Okay. Thank you.
I also wanted to point out something, Mary Lou, for your druid build. Is that you were one behind in wisdom because you were a feral child, which is one of the rare backgrounds that don't allow for a caster stat boost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I really wanted to take Feral Child. And so I know Joe told me, he was like, this is the consequence of taking this background. And I never played Pathfinder before, so I don't know if it was a totally informed choice, but I did totally make that choice on purpose. And I don't think I regret it, but you're right. You're right.
It's a huge part of the character.
It's also just, I think that, yeah, absolutely. And I understand it's completely apparent why you make all the build decisions you make with Raga. But it's also indicative of one of the weaknesses of Pathfinder 2e as a system, I think, which is that for people who have an understanding of the fiction or the fantasy already, Pathfinder 2e is a system where it gets so wacky sometimes, like with spells like Ancient Dust or No True Name or all these other things that get so specific or niche. People who already have played a druid or another spellcaster or something else in D&D 5e, for example, can get lost in the sauce really fast because they, out of nowhere, have so many choices, and you go, oh, I don't just want to be another druid like I could be in 5e. I want to be something weird. And then you get into these weird cases where suddenly you have only cold damage, or you have to fight with Jared over No True Name or something.
Yeah.
Where these like random spells are like so good if they're picked very intentionally, not because, oh, I really wanted to use Timber as my primary cantrip because felling trees on people is really funny. But if that gets into a niche, you just end up being like hamstrung by decisions because you picked such niche options. Also, one of the best spells on the primal spell list, Mud Pit.
Mud pit. I'm taking notes, y'all.
Mud pit obliterated an over extreme encounter in one of my campaigns where the party at level 2 was up against an over 200 XP encounter, and they obliterated them because they stuck a primary group of melee fighters in a 30-foot area of difficult terrain and just got several rounds of free attacks on them.
Sweet Threat,
It was
why were you
unbelievable.
putting a level 2 party against an over extreme encounter? That's unfair. You can't.
Because
it's not
directly demanded
allowed.
it, Jared.
I won't allow it.
Some of us aren't cowards, Jared.
Jared doesn't believe in encounter levels. That's what he says. Which
I
is
do in
an amazing
Pathfinder
thing to
now.
not believe in.
I do in Pathfinder now. You know, when I ran
Now.
years of 5e, you kind of had to go. You had to swing wild with encounter levels because D&D characters are so invincible. In Pathfinder, I think I found out at one point, like the challenge rating or whatever is real. So
It's real.
it's a little bit more
it's so
finely
different.
tuned.
I think balance and like finely tuned are weird descriptors for Pathfinder 2e. I think the thing is it's more exact. I really like the exact descriptor. A bearded devil, for example, will be a really, really fucked up boss encounter for a level where it's a party level +2 or 3. But they can become mooks at level -3 or something, whereas other creatures can be like difficult boss encounters, but still entirely manageable at that same like challenge to the party. But some creatures have these hidden damage amplifiers that you just don't see if you're just going off a like primary like, oh, I have to like cook in the kitchen to make something up like you have in 5e. But there's some things they're hidden in there. But yeah. It's
I
they
just
absolutely
remember
destroy
the
with
Blood
one
of the
casting
Wild
Mud Pit.
party almost getting trampled to death by a hadrosaur because they weren't
Oh my
quite at the
God.
level that they needed to be to take on that hadrosaur.
Yeah, that was scary. Thanks for the
That
call.
was
touch and go.
I missed. We didn't recruit the hadrosaur to the party or to the following, and that one hurt.
Yeah.
I think that was my first thing that I tried to recruit and failed. And that
Yes.
I didn't know about Mud Pit. This is dope. It's
I
pretty
took
crazy.
Mud Pit. I took Mud Pit during just a little behind the scenes. These already came out, but during the chase, when we were
Right.
when we sent out an advance party to ambush
Yeah.
the burning mammoth, and then they ended up ambushing us back. And I went through and I took a lot of area crowd control spells because we were anticipating them being a lot more numerous than us. I took Mud Pit. I never ended up using it, but yeah, it's sick.
it's pretty wild for 3 actions.
what else is
create
a
30-foot in diameter circle of difficult terrain. That's just amazing.
Yeah. Another great spell to take like Mud Pit is Dangerous Hole. Dangerous Hole.
I'm just going to reflavor Mud Pit as Dangerous Hole.
As mentioned earlier in the
Both
show.
of those are on the things I call my anus spell list.
Mud Pit. That is
Beautiful.
so gross, dude.
Yeah, it's
That is
disgusting.
so
I hate it.
foul.
I will never be taking that spell now. Thank you.
And now I've done it. I've stopped you from destroying my encounters.
Also, Anthill, I think it's called. I think it's called Anthill, but it's a huge area of difficult terrain that's constantly pulling you towards the center.
Oh my
It's
God.
like
Cool.
yeah, something or sand pit or something. It's ant. I think it's something anthill. It's funny.
And-
I
don't
would
think it's
also
Anthill.
say Druid is the perfect class for the AP we're playing because the AP
Yeah.
we're playing is all about recruiting these animals, to the following. And
I think I got very lucky there.
no, I think we talked about setting. You knew what to do. Yeah.
I mean, I knew it fit in the setting. I don't think I knew about like how many animals we'd be recruiting and just how useful it would be to talk to animals. Like it's always useful talking to animals. That's another thing is that like talking to animals is just so OP because animals can be like, yeah, I went that way. Or
Well, unless
like,
they're
oh,
a
you don't want me
crow.
to kill you? Yeah,
Right.
yeah. If they're a crow, exactly.
And unless your
crow,
GM
it's less
is
useful.
Troy, I mean, in which case, like he's tends to be pretty opposed to animals being
To
able
animals
to
in general.
communicate with you. I think him and Jared are similar in that respect. But
okay,
Wait,
but
I let animals
rules is
communicate
written.
with you.
you
Yes,
do
exactly. But we had
you
to
do.
fight you for that.
Yeah. It was tough. It is a tricky.
I just don't want the game to turn into a Disney movie where you're like, this is my faithful pig, Pua.
Sure.
Is it okay in your fantasy game to talk to and get information from animals as a druid? Is it also in the same exact way okay to get the same sort of connection and information from plants or fungus, which is one of the builds? It's one of the druid builds. It's like you take a
Right.
feat at early
Instead of
levels
animals, it's
that
plant.
allows you to talk to plants and communicate with fungus. Jared,
I mean,
your
if someone's
thoughts.
whole thing was communicating with fungus, I don't know how I could deny that.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the ones that I saw in terms of the builds. Also, in terms of builds, there is, I think, a very popular build is the Storm Druid,
Ooh,
which
yeah.
was my 1E Druid, was a Storm Druid. So controlling weather, obscuring mist, lightning bolt, whatever, that kind of stuff. Super fun, and it looks like
cool.
there is a build of that in 2E that is very well liked.
100%. Yeah, all of their spells look so cool. I never want to overlap too much with Yelka because she's a storm oracle.
Yeah,
or
she's
oracle of the
a
storm.
tempest oracle.
Tempest oracle.
Mhm.
And that just would be boring if we were doing the same thing. But yeah, super powerful spells and cantrips, and for that subclass.
Did you ever, all right, so when we look at the actual build here, we look at your druidic order. What is your druidic order? Is it untamed?
Animal. I think
Animal
it's
order is my first one, but then I also took in a later feat, you can like spec into another one,
That's right.
and I spec'd into untamed order.
Okay, that's what I was. It's a second level feat called Order Explorer. It says you have learned the secrets of another druidic order. This is something I'm curious to get into in our next segment in a minute here, Jared, about druidic history, because no other class has that, in my opinion. Like the
Just multiple subclasses.
well, no, they do, but
because you can take Order Explorer as many times as you can.
correct. And that was Sydney's druid build in Strange Aeons. Is she just kept taking different orders because she was like, I want to do all of these. They're all so cool.
Right.
So the
Well, as one of our
what I'm
callers said, that's the siren song of Druid. If you're not careful, you get two
spread
army
out.
names.
And Sydney started to get frustrated with that, and she started seeing how low power she was in those different things. So at higher levels, so she sort of decided to start retraining some stuff. So that was fun. But what was I going to say? Oh, I'm saying no other class seems to have this inherent secrecy and like other. It's almost like an ancestry in a way. Like it's an ancestry and a class in a way, right? Druids are they're secretive. They have their own language.
Yeah.
They have their own, and even the way they describe orders in the 2E player core,
Secrets,
it's as if they are secrets. They're secret orders that have learned these abilities, and they only share them with certain people. I remember in 1E, you would be punished if you ever taught the druidic language to a non-druid, right? Like
That's anathema still in E.
Interesting.
2E.
Well, my historical lecture will have something about that.
Yeah, I
actually.
want to hear about that in a second. Let's take another caller here. Let's see what Cosplay has to say. Cosplay, join us here and weigh in on druids.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
We're doing great. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks for having me. Calling in from South Jersey, just outside of Philly. Not to brag.
Nice. Go Birds.
Very
All right,
cool.
what do you
Go
got?
Birds.
What do you got?
So I'm playing in a 5e game, which I know I'm trying to convince, but
How dare you bring it up?
Thanks for calling,
I know.
Cosplay. Enjoy the rest of your
I
night.
think we're all done here. No, I brought
I'm
up
playing
5e earlier. Let's talk 5e.
Yeah. I'm playing a Circle of Stars Druid, which I think brings a really unique like change to the druid. Like it's very different.
I agree.
So instead of turning into animals, you can turn into like constellations.
How's that work?
Well, you don't literally turn into a series of stars in the sky, Joe. It's like
I got
if a constellation is the archer, then suddenly you
All
become
right, I got
badass at being an archer.
It took me a second. I literally was picturing you turning into different balls of light in a dungeon corridor. And I was like, what does this do for you?
What are the constellations, Carter?
So you can choose between 3. There's the chalice, the archer, and the dragon. And each one gives different abilities, obviously. So you're not turning into an animal as much. Like you can still do that, but the constellations allow you to get different abilities like while you're in game. So the archer gives you basically free bonus attack, free just bonus where you just fire your spectral bow. And then dragon allows you to concentrate more. Like you get a bonus to concentration. So if you're in the front lines doing damage, you're like getting attacked, you're more hardy, I guess. And then the chalice gives you bonuses to healing. So to your point, Joe, I don't think Master of None, I think that fits. Jack of all trades, Master of None, but it allows you to focus a little bit more into one of those at will, basically. Like, oh, we need more healing? Okay, I'm going to take on my chalice form and I'll be a healer. We're doing okay. I can take damage and I'll just do more damage.
And you can make these decisions live in combat, not like during daily preparations or anything.
No, it takes the place of your wild shape. So instead of wild shaping into a bear, I'm going to wild shape into the archer.
Different party rolls.
So you get like a limited amount of changes, but you can change.
And at higher levels, you can change between the two. Usually you kind of have to like spend the action economy to switch, and that kind of limits you a little bit more, but it brings like a totally different flavor, in my opinion, to the druid. Instead of like, oh, I'm a vegan, like Matthew would say. Instead, I'm going to be a badass fighter, or instead I'll take on the healer role this time.
Yeah, well, that flexibility live in play is that's sick.
Do you get more constellations later?
No, they just get better. So you're limited to those 3, but they just get better. Like eventually, the dragon constellation, like it just allows you to fly. Like, okay, sick.
I'm releasing a homebrew new list of constellations you can be, like Cancer. You get crab abilities.
Okay.
Gemini. There's just 2 of you on the battlefield.
Yeah, well, you automatically cast mirror image when you use Gemini.
That's good.
Wow.
Yeah, and then
Libra.
you're very good at weighing things.
Yeah. You can just sort of look at something and know how much it weighs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, you have to hold it in both hands.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's harder.
Thanks for the call, cosplay. So when building a druid, because it's a jack of all trades, I think there is something about your party, obviously, to factor in. So you want to know what other kind of characters is your party playing, and that'll give you the ability to fill a role in terms of how you build when you start. Mm-hmm. There is an interesting idea that the animal companion's value in terms of battlefield control, I feel, lessens a bit if you have a largely ranged party. Like if you don't have a rogue and you don't have a melee fighter kind of character, I don't know that the animal companion can hold their own as the party tank in a way.
Right.
I'm not sure that they can do that so much. So maybe, if you have that kind of range stuff, maybe not focusing on animal companion and focusing on the spell casting and debuff spells like Mud Pit, things that'll keep enemies away or obscured or lock them down, or like tangling vines, right? Limiting their movement would help with a ranged party. But yeah, you can see through the primal spell list all these other options that a druid can lean on to build in so many different ways. Mint, why don't you join us? So what do you want to say on druids?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great.
Good.
Thanks for joining us.
Pretty good. I just turned my volume up for the record. I hope that works.
I think it's great. Druids are fantastic. The ending of the phrase "Jack of all trades" Master of None is that they're better than a Master of One.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that,
Ding,
that
ding,
fits
ding.
very well.
Yeah. It's certainly fun as a player, I think, to have that kind of flexibility and not be, too one note for a 2-year campaign, right? Like you don't want to always be kind of doing the same thing. Sorry, I cut you off. What else were you going to say?
No, that's fine. I mean, in terms of the flexibility, at one point it was like, right, you do kind of have to pick when you're making the build, though, what you're going to do, because you can't spec all into Dex and your Wisdom and then be wild shaping into like a bear and everything and have the greatest to hit. So, like in that regard, you kind of have to make the decision on what generally you're going to be doing, but picking
because I read that if you are a wild shape druid, if your strength is better than the animal form's strength or basically melee damage, you can go with your own strength.
That is
so if you were to build a wild shape druid, you might want to focus on your strength instead of the other attributes.
Yeah, if your unarmed attack bonus is better than the wild shape form, you can take your better stat. So like if you have a fighter with the druid multiclass and you wild shape, you get all the benefits of your master proficiency unarmed attacks, and your bear can really start flapping them around.
Holy smokes.
So that's
Never thought about that.
I was curious how the build works because I haven't seen it in action in 2E. I think of World of Warcraft, right, where the build toward being a tank, a druid tank in World of Warcraft, it was a completely feasible build. Like you can build to be a frontline bear that can soak up unbelievable amounts of damage and be great in that role. I've always wondered if I could build a druid in 2E that is a straight up, they fill the role of melee fighter. That is really their role. Can you build to be that effective? It sounds like you can if you're more of a fighter with a rogue dip or with a druid dip. Is that what it is?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
That's maybe what it sounds like.
One of my PFS characters is an archer fighter with the druid dedication. And if pressed by the enemy, you just take this elven archer and he just turns into a bear and starts whooping you. It's great.
Wow.
It works.
That is a really cool build idea. Thanks for calling in, Mint. That's awesome. That sounds really neat. Because I always like classes that have that. This was my first character in Giant Slayer. Had that. What do they call them? At the time there was a name for the build. It's not a jack of all trades, but a switch hitter. That's what they called it. Someone who can provide a volley to start a fight at range, and then once the enemies come up, can switch and be competent in melee as well. And it sounds like that build is really neat. A ranged fighter with a druid dedication that can turn into a bear as needed and fight.
What I like about the druid
fighter is cool.
Yeah. As a melee fighter, frontline, is that you can get your animal companion and then flank with them. And then your animal companions, they often get support benefits. So, I think you could probably game that pretty hard if you wanted to essentially go full frontline.
Almost only ever attacking things off guard. Almost always. And you have control over that. That's cool. But you'd have to have 2 orders. Correct? Or am I mistaken? No. Sorry. You're not talking about, if you're a bear, you would need 2 orders, right? Because you'd have to have the wild shape and the animal companion. Oh, no, the animal companion isn't in order, right? That's more of it. That's a feat.
It is. You get it with the animal order.
The animal order.
The untamed order allows you to take a wild shape. But you could order Explorer that shit, and then next thing you know, It's twin bears. It's twin bear takedown.
Twin bears. I've done it. Twin bear takedown. Pretty cool.
It can happen.
I've
it
seen
happens.
It. Yep.
It happens, man.
That's awesome.
By the way, I'm a switch hitter when it comes to mud pits and dangerous holes.
I knew it.
I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming.
We were due. We were due a butthole joke.
Theophrastus, why don't you join us? What do you? In a second, I want to talk about high level feats for druids.
Hey, what's up?
Because there's some fun stuff there. What's going on?
What's up, man?
Am I saying your name right? Theophrastus?
Yeah. All good. Perfect.
Nailed it.
I wanted to add something on role-playing druids, not on the mechanical side, but
Great,
something that
please.
I read online that opened up the idea of a druid to me in many ways. I didn't really like the kind of hippie-leaning, animal-loving, nature-loving idea that's often out there, even though it can be fun. But there's a really good blog post by a guy called Goblin Punch, who wrote a blog post about 7 common myths about druids. And he's trying to kind of make this pitch that think of druids as these nature enthusiasts that are like nature. They are unforgiving, brutal, vicious, capricious, and strange. And that's how you should kind of think about the character concept, that they're like, you know, like kind of psychopaths, that they burn stuff down. They're unforgiving.
Chaotic neutral, right?
Yeah, but in like they rip your throat out and then they drink your blood. And I mean, you don't have to go that extreme, but I read that.
Why is that the correct way to play a druid?
Well, no, I think he's offering an alternate option for people that are
exactly.
like, oh, I don't want to talk to plants. Like that's not my thing. Oh, well, here's a different build. You are an
eco-terrorist.
You are a
force of nature.
Avatar of the force of nature, right? Like in a bad way. That's fascinating.
And it really kind of opens up the idea of how to access like a druid as a character, and then kind of maybe the feats you would pick with that will be probably pretty different if you go down that road compared to the animal companion druid. And Times New Skeleton has put the link in the chat, so I recommend to read it. It's really fun. It's good. I mean, it's a little tongue in cheek, but it helped me think about druids in a different way. That was kind of fun.
That's cool. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a really cool concept. My first druid that I played for a very long time was inspired by my reading of, it's the exact opposite of what Theophrastus was talking about. It was inspired by my reading of Into the Wild. That book was awesome. If you've ever read Into the Wild, the true story about the guy who tried to completely unplug and move to Alaska and live completely off the land, etc. Really fascinating. And I was like, I want to be somebody that eschews civilization in that way. I had a lot of fun playing that character, but that alternate, the flip side of that coin is like, what if you, while representing nature, are like, you're going to kill or whatever, be there to harm anyone that harms nature at all, right? So like building villages and tearing down trees, and that gives you the motivation to do like what would be considered immoral things. But you're like, F you guys, like you cut down these trees. Like that's my morality is defined by this. And you're violent and ruthless like a hurricane. It's very cool.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, such a neat concept. Let's see. Anybody else want to get in here? Druid or Jared, do you want to talk? I want to talk. Let me do a couple high level feats because these get really fun. One jumped out at me that I thought was awesome. At 14th level, a thing called reactive transformation. Very cool. It's a feat at 14th level that as a reaction gives you the ability to wild shape based on a trigger, and you can wild shape instantly as a reaction, and they're just so fun. One is the trigger, you fall 10 feet or more. You can just choose to wild shape into one of your flying forms.
Oh, that would have been useful at one point.
Yeah. You take acid, cold, electricity, fire, or poison damage. You can immediately transform into a dragon that's immune to that type of damage, like and wash away that damage. Like, right? You take poison damage. You can wild shape into a plant form that is immune to poison. Like, anyway, I thought that was a really cool one and very cinematic as well.
Yeah,
it jumped out to me. There's a ton of cool
I want to
ones
create a druid as a master of different plant shapes. You know. Like when the enemies attack, I just turn into an oak tree and just kind of lay low until the fight is over.
Just kind of relax.
Yeah. Maybe an apple tree and I drop an apple on one of their heads.
Knock them out or they discover gravity.
Yeah. Here's a high level feat. 18th level. I think this would be more fun for an NPC probably. If you're building a story, I think this is a good one. It's an actual written feat. Perfect form control. At 18th level, untamed wild shape can be indefinite. So you can just wild shape and never have to wild shape out of it. Very cool concept. And that's how you get those stories of, a character who is, it's someone's animal companion for weeks and weeks and weeks or whatever. And then you find out it's actually a person. Great twist.
Yeah.
Fun story element. And you can say, hey, I did that with a real build. Anyway. we got to keep it moving, Jared.
Yeah.
Why don't you said you wanted to
I just
talk-
want to throw in there. I really like the way it's written in the Wizard of Earthsea, and other things have adapted this, where it's like if you stay in animal form too long, you start to believe that you are that animal. I think that's some really cool fiction that goes with wild shaping.
Animorphs. Totally.
Animorphs. I mean, let's talk about the Animorphs series in another episode dedicated to it.
Two Animorphs.
Two Animorphs.
I just want to say, yeah, it seems that high level feat like is recognizing that, and that's why you can't stay in these forms for that long. This one is like it gives you the control to separate yourself from the animal, etc.
Right.
Very cool.
That's cool.
Anyway, you said you want to
have
talk
to make
about,
it to 18th level.
You just got to survive that long and have a GM willing to run a campaign that long, or you just start at 18th level.
Yeah, sure.
If you want to go down that route.
Possible.
Jared, talk to us
Let's talk
about
a little
real
bit
life
about
druids.
nerd history.
Yes.
The Druids. Well, the Druids, it might surprise you to learn that the Druids in history were a little different from the Druids in Pathfinder.
A little bit.
So the Druids, they were a priestly class of the Celtic peoples. And the Celtic peoples lived in what is now Great Britain and Gaul, which is now modern day France. And they lived there before this, but a lot of our records of who they were come from the time of the Roman Republic as it transformed into the Roman Empire. So that is when the Druids were very active, and when they came under the scrutiny of the Romans, who wrote a lot of things about them. And what is significant about what you said earlier, Joe, is that the Druids had a policy, they had a belief never to write any of their knowledge down. If you became a Druid, you needed to memorize that knowledge. And this process took 10 to 20 years, learning all of the things that a Druid does. And it was never written down. So we don't have any records from this time of what the Druids thought of themselves or all the things that they could do. But we do know that they were not just religious leaders. They were also judges for legal cases among the Celtic tribes. They were healers, so they were doctors or medicine people. They also were scholars. They were basically a intellectual class among the Celtic tribes. And a lot of times, each tribe would have or each village would have one Druid. And that Druid was sort of like the shaman or the medicine man of that village or that community. But what I would compare it to, if you want a pop culture reference, is the Maesters from Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Where each house has a Maester, right? Mm-hmm. And the Maester knows how to do all of this stuff that the other people don't know how to do. That is what the Druid was. The Druid knew how to take care of your eye infection, but also the Druid would act as a mediator when two tribes who were having a beef would meet each other. And the Druids had an organization separate from their tribes. A Druid wasn't just, I'm my tribe, do or die, I'm just for my tribe or my village. The Druids would meet independently in these big convocations. So they would have a big meeting in Central Gaul where Druids interacted alone, and then they would go back to their various communities with the knowledge that they had shared with each other and that they had learned. And a lot of times when two tribes would meet, the Druids would be like, oh, hey, I remember you from the convention. I remember you from Druid Gen Con 55 BC.
Yeah.
That's Jared. I think that comparison to Maesters is perfect. I mean, that seems to be really what it's drawn from, because the Maesters, they all, even the kings, queens, lords, whoever that they work for, always know that they have their own order. Right. And they're never sure how much they can trust them. Right. And they have their base of operations. I can't remember it now. It's I think it's in Old Town. I
Yeah,
think it's
Old Town.
called
Yes, it is.
High Tower or something like that. It's like there's some great
The
tower
High
there.
Towers are a family that
High Towers
hail
are a
from
family.
Old Town, but Old Town is exactly correct.
Yeah, like that's where they would meet, have their conferences, and then
college,
they go out
Maester's
and then they get
College.
assigned to different houses, the lords and ladies of the different houses. Very cool concept. Also, just wanted to jump onto your because I feel like there's a concept of that because we just got done playing Pendragon. It's like that's the concept of Merlin in Pendragon and some of the other sort of casters that you can run into. Like as growing up as a kid, watching the Sword in the Stone and stuff, I always thought of Merlin as a wizard. But in Pendragon, he's named as a druid. Like that's what they call him, is a druid. And people of that order. They don't necessarily in that fiction all talk together or whatever, but they the people that have these strange and otherworldly powers, they're drawing them from primal sources, which is really cool.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is very appropriate because Merlin, if Merlin were real, would have been a Celtic wizard or a Celtic magic user because King Arthur is traditionally seen as a pre-Anglo-Saxon Briton who fought the Anglo-Saxons. So those are Celtic people before the Anglo-Saxons. Okay, so did Druids have anything to do with animals? They sure did.
Ooh.
They routinely sacrificed animals.
And they like look in their guts and stuff.
Yes,
right?
they did. A lot of Druids were haruspexes, which means that they would predict the future with animal guts. So they would sacrifice like a goat or a lamb or something, and then they would pull out its innards, and based on the arrangement of the intestines, they would see omens or things about the future. Interesting. Another thing about their sort of cosmology or their religion was they did venerate the earth. They did, but they didn't really necessarily believe in earth gods. It's complicated. They saw their gods as their ancestors, right? So it was almost like ancestor veneration, which you definitely see in the Far East, or you see a lot of in Native American cultures. They thought that the gods were descended from the gods. But also the gods would sometimes become actual parts of nature, parts of the environment. So for example, there is a goddess that they think was revered by a lot of Druids named Danu. And Danu became, literally in their mind, became the Danube River. The Danube River.
Got it.
Wow, interesting.
Some cool things about the Druids was that they believed in gender equality. They were as many females as there were males. And although the tribes that they worked with and worked for did not have that belief, women were very marginalized in those tribes and kept to, child rearing and household, kind of keeping up the household. The Druids there were a lot of female Druids, and they were allowed to fill that role. And the female Druids were allowed to advise the leaders whose villages they were a part of, and they were allowed to mediate in disputes. So they had like kind of equal rights if you were a Druid. They were also a kind of socialist. They believed in collective property. They believed that the community owned property, not an individual person. And that really didn't jive with the Romans when they started conflicting with the Romans, because the Romans had a very different view of property, which I bring that up. You should know that one of our biggest references to Druidic culture comes from the Julius Caesar, who wrote treatises on his various military campaigns
because he campaigned in Gaul. Yep.
Yeah. And he wrote a lot about the Druids, a lot of which was lies. And they think a lot of Julius Caesar's writings were actually taken from someone else. Like he just basically cribbed someone else. But we know them as Julius Caesar's writings. That's how they come down to us. And he said that they engaged in human sacrifice, that they put people inside the Wicker Man. You know about the Wicker Man, Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you've never seen the Wicker
just
Man,
from like Pathfinder.
Great movie.
If you've never seen the original Wicker Man with Christopher Lee, you
I've never
gotta
seen
see it.
It's so good.
Great movie. but not a lot of basis in fact. Not a lot of basis in fact at all. Just a couple quick little other extra factoids. Mary Lou, if you wanted Raga to be a more historically correct druid, she would wear more swastikas on her garments.
Oh,
okay.
The druids used the swastika as a symbol in a lot of their iconography. Now, of course, the swastika got a bad rap later because some very despicable people used it as their symbol. But before that,
I did know that symbol predated the Nazi movement, but I didn't know.
It's a Hindu. It's a Hindu symbol as well.
Yeah, it's also an Eastern symbol as well. So it got around.
Skid in chat says that's how I always pictured her anyway.
And finally, another thing that you could do, Mary Lou, if you wanted to be more like a historical druid, is they preserved the heads of people they respected. So if a respected elder died, they would decapitate the corpse and then pickle the head so that they could keep it because they respected him so much.
I should have pickled someone's head. I won't say
we should do more head pickling.
You should have pickled Olog's head.
I should have.
You should have decapitated Olog and pickled his head. And just one final thing: do you know when Druids became a TTRPG class that you could play? Does anybody know?
That's a good, fun factoid. I don't know because they're not in the original D&D, right? Like the original.
Actually, they are in OD&D from the 70s. They're from the first edition of D&D.
Wow, really?
There was a 1976 supplement. I believe if I remember my reading correctly, it was the third supplement ever for D&D besides the main rulebook. And it was called Eldritch Wizardry. And in that book, druids are introduced as a subclass of the cleric. So that is when druids finally got into TTRPGs. And that is my lecture on the druids.
That was great, man. That was some good fun. Hey, great job, Druid.
Thank you, Professor.
Great job, Jared.
No
those are some good fun facts. Clorpdonk in Twitch
facts.
chat says you had to be true neutral. And then Great Gray says they were in the first supplement to D&D. You said they're in the third. Okay, you don't know who's right there.
I'm right.
And then Spitfire.
And I'm not just reading Wikipedia, Clorpdunk. How unbelievably rude. I used multiple sources.
Wow. So rude.
I mean, just so rude.
Jared just reading Wikipedia. Spitfire just beat you to the cleric thing, saying, weren't they a subclass of a cleric? And yeah, you were right, Spitfire. They were. That's really cool.
I did say that. Thanks, guys. If everybody could go and fact check me now, and then in any way that I got something wrong, throw that in the chat. That would be great.
That would be great because I love learning, and isn't about learning the pursuit of truth above all else.
No, it's not, Mary Lou.
Okay, my bad. That's my bad.
It's the pursuit of the chat learning manners.
That is okay.
And how to be respectful to someone who's trying to give them the gift of entertainment.
And that's fair.
The gift of entertainment. That was awesome. All right, let's move on to big news. Big news in the video game industry. There was a big leak. Just at the end of last week, I think it was middle of the end of last week, there was a sudden release of a leaked, supposedly AI robot response to a fan question on X or something like that. That Bethesda was going to release a remaster of the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion. I played myself a lot of Oblivion back in the day after coming off of Morrowind, which I loved so much. Curious, Mary Lou, if you have any... Did you ever play Oblivion?
I watched my high school boyfriend play Oblivion, and then I've played hundreds upon hundreds of hours of Skyrim. It is the one game that I own on every single platform. I have it on Steam, I have it on PlayStation, I have it on Switch.
I was a giant Skyrim fan. What is the setting or like the story of Oblivion?
The basic setting story of Oblivion, I don't remember a lot of details,
Elder
but
Scrolls.
I know it's an Elder Scrolls
It is set
game.
in Cyrodiil, so you are in the capital of the whole empire, and it surrounds, right? So it's not only in the city, I don't believe. Wait, is Cyrodiil the name of the city or the nation? I can't remember, but it is the emperor of the whole sort of landscape is a character in the game, voiced by Patrick Stewart at the time, which was so dope, and is about. It's sort of Oblivion is an extra planar. It's a place. It's a place that is sort of it's like the upside down in a way, and
it's Daedric, right? Like it's one of the Daedric planes.
It's a plane of the Daedric, yes, and it starts breaking into our reality in this world, and so part of your job in the game, part of the main quest, as I recall it, is finding these tears in space-time where the plane is leaking in and going in and closing them. And the way that you have to close them has a fun kind of game loop where you're always walking into like Oblivion is sort of like a hell plane of fire in a way, and you encounter horrifying monsters and creatures. You do these dungeon crawls, and then you have to always resolve something in that part in order to seal that particular rift, and then you move from rift to rift. And so it gets a little bit repetitive. Some people, I think, found it boring at the time. I really liked it, Mary Lou, in the way you were saying earlier, where it's like, give me a clear goal, an understanding of what's happening here. Because open world games can get a little bit dangerous with that, right? Like where there's too much. What is the actual story I'm playing here? This one was pretty clear cut. There's tons of side quest options you can do, of course. And you have the classic Elder Scrolls. There's a Fighter's Guild. There's a Thief's Guild, a Mage's College. So you could do, Mage's Guild. I think it was college in Skyrim. But you can do all those different things. But the very clear threat is the gates of Oblivion are opening into our world, and they're going to take over our world. So that's the basic concept. And
now, what does it mean that they're remastering it? Does that mean that it is getting completely new graphics and new content?
Yeah. So the way that my initial understanding of the leak is that they would be remastering it, which is sort of like instead of rebuilding the game from scratch, they are giving it a better paint job, right? Like they're just kind of, they're not using a different engine.
A new engine.
I do believe now that they actually were doing a bit of a rebuild. They were making it in an Unreal Engine, I think, that was built from scratch. So this is my understanding. All right, so the reason this is confusing is because this information was leaked. There were 3 or 4 days of tons of fan speculation, and then just yesterday, they came on and did a whole reveal video about everything, and I missed it because I was recording our Gatewalkers campaign. So I haven't seen the full video, but I've seen parts of it. But I believe they rebuilt it like from scratch in a new engine. It's supposed to look incredible. They did a lot of work with the animation of characters, because the original Oblivion didn't have it's similar to Morrowind. It didn't have characters like reacting to hits, right? So like if you were hitting, it'd just be like you were swinging swords back and forth at each other, and the guy would just be standing there and the health would go down. This one actually has, hits that land could have, reactions where the guy stumbles back, or they also talked about the importance in the engine of separating the lower body from the upper body for different animation angles. So that was kind of a neat thing. Like the upper body can move, but the lower body doesn't, or vice versa. And that obviously those graphics came.
I love that they're like the new Oblivion. The lower body moves now.
Right, exactly.
Wow.
Things they didn't have back in 2006 when it first came out.
Yeah.
Wait, so I'm sorry, Mary Lou. So you never played Oblivion?
No, and actually, I'm so glad that we got to this section because it reminded me to go buy it on Steam. So I just added it to my cart.
Yes.
I'm continuing to
awesome.
payment.
I'm so excited for you to hop in. I'm actually going to stream it tomorrow, right here.
Fun.
on Twitch, right here on this channel. I'm going to stream it at 1 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, and we'll take a look at it. We'll see how these graphics look. We'll create a character and get into it. Yeah, I'm excited to dive back in because I don't remember the whole thing. I want to play it with updated graphics. They also did some updating of the mechanics of the game. They definitely did some updating there, which is cool, in terms of like how you level, how experience works, but then also like the actual controller, how it works is been modernized because games since in the last 20 years have made fundamental quality of life improvements to how games like that work. And they've made these kind of changes. So yeah, it should be really cool. I'm excited for it. So far, what I see on Steam, it opened up to good reviews, not great. Not a ton of reviews yet. About 10,000 were in as of this morning, and it's listed as very good, but not overwhelmingly positive, which we always like to look for.
But how long has it been out?
It's been out since 2006.
No, I mean, how long has the remaster been out?
Since
You're talking about
it dropped
the reviews
yesterday. Yeah.
Okay, so the reviews. Let's give it a week, guys.
I'm just exactly. Well, dude,
how many hours is the game?
Dude, some of these, I bet you some of these 10,000 people played like 30 hours since yesterday when it came out. Like, it's crazy. But
get alive.
They don't have children. They don't have.
It doesn't matter. Go outside.
Cats.
They don't have to work.
No,
Some of this is their
you
work.
hippies.
Wow, you really sound like my dad now. You what? I don't have a job. How
Get
do you
to
do that on
work,
a
you
Tuesday?
hippies.
You bought a video game on a Tuesday? Didn't you have work?
This is Trump's America. You've got to work.
Anyway, I'm not sure why they did it this way. I don't know why they didn't talk about it all through the process or give us a release date months in advance and hype it and everything. It was very strange. Like they just didn't say anything about it.
Drop.
And then something leaked, and perhaps that leak was engineered, and that's fine. That's fun. And it caused a whole stir. And then they announced everything that's like cool and in and new about the game the same day they released it. So interesting
Wild.
take. So it was available yesterday,
That's
and I
cool.
have not fired it up yet. I've downloaded it onto my Xbox, but I haven't fired it up yet. I'm going to do that tomorrow. So
I got to free up some space.
Yeah, it's big. I hear it's a
big.
beast. It's like 120 gigs or something like that. The download.
It's 120.
Yeah. Because they also packaged it with its at least one major DLC that it came with. So it all comes together one thing. There was like the Knights of the Nine or something like that, and I played that DLC.
Is the DLC new or is it remastered?
It's one of the old DLCs.
It was one of the old DLCs, but they remastered it, packaged it in with the original game.
Cool.
Yeah. I don't know, Jared. Maybe this is how we get you back into it.
I don't know, man. I mean, this is my favorite kind of game. You know, Skyrim is my favorite game of all time. So, I would love to play this. Unfortunately, I eschew all technology and am going to go live on a mountain.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I'm misinformed. The DLC costs $10 extra.
Yeah,
Sorry.
the base game is $50, but you can include the DLC, which is like some extra weapons and the horse armor.
I thought I read something that said that. Well, I guess they were shipping together, and maybe that was during the leak stage that I heard misinformation. So apologies for the wrong information. But we're hearing it from both sides.
Guys, we'd just like to take a second to apologize for everything that we've gotten wrong today. You know, it's our duty as journalists to give you the truth first, and we have failed in that duty.
But Joe's also right that the base game includes some of the original DLC content, but there's also a DLC. So
we just want you to know that we're going to do better in the future. We're going to make sure
we're going to learn.
We're going to listen. We're listening
to
and
you
learning.
guys.
We're listening and learning.
And we're going to make sure that our dangerous holes and our mud pits are ready to receive your switch hitting in whatever way that you deem necessary.
So many phrases in today's episode that were thrown out.
Yeah.
Before we get into the last segment here, I just want to thank Mary Lou again for hanging with us. She's going to hang through the last segment as well, but also is going to guest host next week. Mary Lou,
Hell
I will
yeah.
not be here. I'm going to miss my first Glass Cannon Radio next week. I'm devastated, but I got to do some recording. And as we discussed, we're recording my solo sax jazz album. But during that time, Mary Lou is going to co-host with Jared next week. I know you guys are going to talk about LARPing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what else you're going to get into. It should be a fun week. So tune in for that. Mary Lou co-hosting next week. What's our final segment here, Jared?
Yes, our final segment, Fae or Fae. We're going to talk about something that is close to the Druid sphere, which is the Fae, the fair folk, fairies, the creatures, the beings of the Feywild. And to start us off, I would just like to say, Fae or Fae, what does that mean? Why do we call it Fae or Fae?
And F-A-E or F-E-Y. That's for those that are listening at home. F-A-E or F-E-Y. Which one is correct, Jared?
Well, listen. I looked this up on Wikipedia only. And what I learned was that nobody really agrees with me, but I think this is absolutely correct. F-A-E should be the spelling you're using if you're talking about the ethereal beings from the realm of fairy. F-E-Y should be if you're talking about the adjective that describes those beings, because you can also use that adjective to describe normal people as elf-like or ethereal. F-E-Y is more of an adjective, and F-A-E is sort of a name for the creatures themselves. And if you do it, if you use F-E-Y to describe the creatures, you are wrong.
Wow.
And
that's how
I hope
the
that
only
you have
spelling
a
I've ever
streaming
used.
show so I can send you a comment about it.
Okay.
So it's the Fae, but Fae can be Fae.
The Fae are Fae.
Yes. But if you're saying the Fae, it's F-A-E. The Fae.
That's correct. Thank you. Yes. And and look, that's
what
not
if you
official.
were running? What if you got your friends together and said, "Look, guys, I want to run a little homebrew campaign. It's going to be a Fae campaign."
Yeah.
F-E-Y.
It would be so funny if you said it's going to be a Fae campaign and you spelled it F-E-Y, and then when they came, there was nothing about fairies in it. You were just very whimsical and ethereal about your campaign.
Oh, okay.
And you did these hand gestures a lot.
So
For
that
those
would
of you
be
listening at home,
incorrect.
my fingers are very wavy right now.
Ooh, whooshy.
So F-E-Y in that case is incorrect.
In my opinion, I must ultimately tell you, in my opinion, I guess some people use F-E-Y for the creatures, but to me, that's not as clean because F-E-Y is an adjective that's used in just normal literature to describe someone's characteristics as elfin or ethereal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this spelling doesn't appear anywhere in Pathfinder that I know of. At least in 2E, they are referred to as the Fae, F-E-Y, and these are, the way they define them is creatures of the first world.
I love the first world as a term for the realm of fairy. I think that sounds so
first
cool.
World.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, also hearkening to Game of Thrones. There's a whole, the first men, right? Like this existence before with like the children of the forest and all that stuff. That kind of has Fae-ish vibes.
But the first
themes.
world is its own realm or dimension, right?
No, for sure. I'm saying like some of those concepts enter the Game of Thrones fiction where it's like before this whole civilized world existed here, there was something before. But yes, I agree that they're different, but they're adjacent. In
Pathfinder, the first world is an infinite plain of constantly varying wilderness with trees as tall as mountains, living bodies of water, and traveling fairy courts.
Wow.
Pretty cool. Have they ever done an AP where you spend some time in the first world? That sounds awesome.
I don't know. I'm sure that they have.
I know that 5e has a campaign called The Wild Beyond the Witchlight that I have read, where you spend a lot of time in the Feywild, F-E-Y.
Yeah, they spell it. That's how they spell it.
They spell it like that, but maybe that's okay because it's a wild that is elfin and ethereal, so maybe that's okay. The Feywild, and I read it, and it was It was very whimsical.
Look at his face. He doesn't like whimsical.
If you want to get your 7-year-old into Dungeons and Dragons, I recommend the Wild Beyond the Witchlight campaign.
Gotcha. All right. Well, let me give my quick opinion on Fae. I mean, obviously, it's a large concept, and there are a lot of different angles to it. But I will say up front, and I've said this for several years now, I have no interest in it. In Fae creatures, Fae combats, Fae encounters, Fae stories in my tabletop RPGs. I kind of feel like
why
I'm over it. And well, there's two primary reasons. One is it feels like it's in fucking everything, and I'm sick of it. And two is, for me, and this is just a me thing, I have such hatred for. How can I describe this? It's like things being evil in a campaign makes sense. I want to fight against that. It's evil. There's darkness, whatever. Like I get that concept, and those themes are interesting for me to explore. I really dislike themes of chaos. I don't like themes of nothing makes sense. Everything there's no order to it. It bothers it bothers a part of my brain that a lot of people love chaos. They want to lean into it in their stories in any way they can get chaos, whether it's in their characters or in something they're against or whatever. I like to understand to some degree, like what my enemy is after. What my enemy's goals are, right? Like when you enter Fae, a lot of times the GM just gets to be like, they're just messing with you just because. Just because they want to.
The goal of the Fae is japes and jests.
Exactly,
Joe.
Which I hate as a player. Now, I've enjoyed running some Fae stuff. I enjoy messing with players. But I'll say, as a player, if you said to me, for example, like I just said, if you said, I'm running a Fae campaign, I would say, I'm not interested. Thank you. I won't play in it.
There were quite a few Fae in Quest for the Frozen Flame already. At your lower levels, but yeah, they were in there.
They were.
And it's because they're in everything. Like people use them all the time. Now, I know that might be kind of like saying, oh, there were beasts in this campaign. I'm so over beasts, right? Like it might be such a general topic that it makes no sense as an argument for me.
Yeah, I think the Fae can be played a lot of different ways.
Agreed,
so I don't know if I totally agree with you, but I do think you are pointing at how they are often portrayed, or the stereotypical portrayal.
Yeah, or a campaign that is just so only focused on a Fae story. It bothers me because I feel like it has no direction. It is going to struggle to make sense, and those kind of things just they bother my brain.
I mean, we're talking about what I just read about the first world, about how it has things that don't make sense, trees the size of mountains and living rivers and stuff like that. You start to get into a fantasy that is so fantasy. It's like so far away from the real world, right? It's like already Galarian or the Forgotten Realms or whatever, already that's really out there. And then when you go to the Feywild or the First World, you're going even more out there to where it starts to feel like a little Alice in Wonderland, right?
Yeah, I was just thinking Alice in Wonderland.
That might be
think when I hear people speak about the Feywild in 5e over the years, I've heard a lot of like, oh, I'm so excited. It's a new Feywild supplement or a new Feywild story, or my GM is running through a Feywild game, whatever. And they're excited about this prospect. And I'm always just like, ugh, like, no, thank you. I want nothing to do with like a landscape that is entirely first world mind-bending forest.
But a lot of people like
forest
fairies.
Is scary enough.
A lot of people are super into fairies.
I agree. A lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, I like fairies,
I'm into fairies
if they're a certain flavor. Can I tell you one of my favorite fairy world things that we haven't talked about on the show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is from White Wolf, who created Vampire the Masquerade. The final game in their line of like supernatural games was a game based on fairies called Changeling, right? And the original Changeling was called Changeling the Dreaming. And you were basically people where they had like a fairy soul inside them. So like only other fairies could tell that you were a fairy, right? Like the only other people that could tell that you were like a goblin or like a she noble fairy lord or whatever. And you were kind of trapped in a human body. So you could be like a rock star who's really kind of one of the changelings or whatever. But what they introduced in a later version of the game, which was called Changeling the Lost, was that, okay, the reason you were that thing is because you got kidnapped when you were like years ago. You got kidnapped and you were trapped in the realm of fairy for what felt like thousands of years. And then eventually you escaped back to the real world and you were all changed by that traumatic experience. And the true fae are hunting you always to take you back. And they play the true fae as scary as possible. They are like horrible, malevolent gods who the nonsensical things about them are kind of creepy and off-putting, and that game is all about like you've banded together with these refugees who all managed to escape the true fae, and you're kind of hiding out in the real world.
That's sick.
And it's very cool, and I would love to play a game of it sometime.
That's cool.
That does sound cool. Like to me, if it's set in the more realistic world, that sounds cool to me, because I do find those chaotic, freaky elements of Fae to be terrifying. Like if you play it as a horror game, I really like that. What I don't like is the what you said before, like japes and mystery or mystical, whatever. It's like that kind of shit is what I'm not interested in. But yeah,
but
the
some
idea
people
of,
go to fantasy for cozy fun, Joe.
And that's fine. That's fine for them. But I'm just saying it's not for me.
Some people love shenanigans.
I like when the Fae can be both. We have a lot of Fae in our LARPs, and they talk about there are two different realms in the Fae realm. There's the Paradox. So the Fae realm is called Paradox, and there's Paradox Dusk, and there's Paradox Dawn. And most Fae, like all Fae, are not human, right? And they like cannot be killed and are ultra powerful and are insane, right? Full Fae. But there are some Fae that are more like benevolent and find humans like interesting and will help them. But most Fae are malevolent and find humans like more fun to like play with and mess with and fuck with. But they're all not human.
In what fiction is this?
In LARP. In my LARP.
Oh, in your LARP. Okay,
in my
great.
LARP.
I'm sorry, I missed that for a second.
Which
That's
we'll
cool.
talk more about next week. Mr. E-Knight on Twitch says, I want to know everything about Mary Lou's LARP. So
can you play?
Tune in next
play
week,
a Fae in
Mr.
your
E-Knight.
LARP? Can you play?
You cannot
a Fae?
play a full Fae, but you can play somebody who is Fae blooded. So they're like descended from the Fae.
Your LARP has its own game system and world.
Completely.
Cool.
Completely. It's so cool. We'll get into it. We'll get into the lore.
Looking forward to hear about it next week. Well,
maybe we'll make you a character. Oh, that'd be so cool. Okay.
You talk about how much they hate humans, right? And they like to fuck with them and everything like that. So I will say I ran a campaign, a short-lived campaign here on the network called Echo Quest, which got killed by COVID. But it was one of our first forays into 2E. And I was playing a game that was not Fae focused, but it was on the borders of a forest that in Golarion called the Echo Wood that in Pathfinder has like Fae elements in it that I read about in like a gazetteer kind of thing of the forest. And one of the things that I found really cool, not like, just really interesting, is that the Fae to mess with characters, and I really liked this element of how it would mess with them, is the fairies would have the capability to move the forest in ways that were disorienting. And that was really fun. So like you're not dealing with creatures per se that are in front of you. You're dealing with not trusting your own mind, which I found really fun. Things like the path, the trail that you took here yesterday is not, it turned right when yesterday you swear it turned left. And then the players start wondering if they're misremembering something, or if there's a spell cast on them, or if their just survival check failed, or whatever it might be, having no idea that there is a Fae creature messing with them. So there were things like moving huge rocks like that are like place markers, right? Like if you were hiking, you could say like, oh, that rock formation. I remember that rock formation. And that was the point where we made this turn or whatever. And like the rock formation can appear in a different place and make them think they went in a circle when they didn't. And those kind of things were fun to play with PCs. So like the idea of twisting forests around to get people lost.
That's in the Lord of the Rings too. Like Fangorn Forest does stuff like that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
There are no explicit fae in the Lord of the Rings. I think the realm Middle Earth itself is sort of a realm of fairy in a way. But that's really cool. Yeah, I love that. The idea that they trick you in ways. Like, that's almost more like the actual superstitions about fae, right? That you go into the forest and you'll never come out because the fae are messing with you or whatever.
Jaggedy Gaming on Twitch says, Joe does a 180 on shenanigans. Let me be clear, and I think I said this a little bit earlier when I started the segment. I like running it. Like, I just don't like being messed with. It bothers me. But yeah, there are those fun things as a GM that you can do with Fae that I think are neat. But let me say one more thing on what you said about them not liking humans and kind of getting after humans. And I just want to bring up my one Fae. If you say Fae, this is the first thing I think of. And to me, it's awesome, and I never get tired of it. And that is, we have a very famous Fae in the annals of Glass Cannon history, a Fae who got charmed into joining our party for a time, went by the name of Razmataz, and was one of Troy's greatest NPCs ever. And normally that kind of silly shit would be stupid, and I wouldn't be interested in it. But because of this creature was what it was, it made it amazing. This is the Red Cap. The Red Cap.
Oh, yeah,
Are you aware of Red Caps, Mary?
Oh, yeah, Red Caps are in that Changeling game I was talking about.
Yeah, so this is a very old folklore creature. Like, this goes way, way back. But Red Caps in the Pathfinder entry are sadistic and capricious fae who thrill in bloodletting and murder. They're so they couldn't be more crystal clear. They have this addiction to murder that is so fun to play with.
We love that.
And it's nice as a character too, as a PC too, because you're just like, whenever you see them, you just kill them. Like, there's no question. And in the Pathfinder entry, they also, small troops of redcaps travel together, sharing bloody kills and reminiscing about their brutal exploits. They loathe the company of other creatures.
And they're called red caps because they dye their caps
in the blood of their victims.
And McD just made a really good point that America has brought back red caps as a
fashion
and the
style.
people that wear them are very similar in outlook and personality to red caps from Pathfinder.
That's so funny. Red caps are back. Brown shirts and red caps. Holy smokes.
Oh, that is amazing.
Can I, since we're on since it's taken a dark turn, have you ever heard about the murder of Bridget Cleary?
No.
Nor.
So this was Irish. It was Irish, I think. But basically, there was this woman in 1895, and her home had been built on what they call a fairy ring. Kind of like a ring of stones or land that looked like it was in a ring formation, and people attributed that to the fairies, right? And this woman, it seemed like she had become very independent of her husband. She had found income streams of her own and had kind of stepped out of his shadow quite a bit.
How dare she?
Anyway, she kind of went missing, and people started asking about her. This was right after she had some bronchitis. And when the priest and the doctor had come, her husband was raving about how she had been replaced by a fairy. And everybody was kind of worried about that. But of course, it's 1895. So, you just kind of leave the woman there with bronchitis and the guy that's raving about her turning into a fairy. Come to find out that under the assumption that she had been replaced with a fairy. Her father and her husband and a group of neighbors had murdered her by setting her on fire.
Jesus.
Scary.
Yes. And they truly thought that she had been under the influence of, had become a fairy because she wasn't doing exactly what her husband told her to do.
Ugh.
Oh, man.
So let that be a lesson to you wives out there.
I mean, this is terrifying.
Good thing I'm not married.
Yes, very good thing.
Yeah, good.
Nobody can kill me because I'm not a
You
fairy.
can still have your
Well, the only
freedom.
reason I bring it up is to well, first of all, it's kind of a fucked up, creepy story, and I like stories like that.
Totally.
Even though it's very sad as well, and I think it points out some issues with culture. But can you believe 1895 people were still that convinced that fairies existed and that they had
1895.
influence over people? I think it's pretty interesting.
Well-
Yes, it was Ireland. I'm checking on Wikipedia right now, Clorp.
You hear that, Clorp?
Well,
Mr. Enite on
son
Twitch
of a
says,
bitch.
that is where the fairies are the most powerful. The Fae. They're in Ireland. So.
Mr. Enite on Twitch says 1895 in Ireland was like 1500 everywhere else. Little offensive to the Irish.
Yeah,
But,
come on.
But yeah, no, I think that a lot of those superstitions still existed in droves before the modern era, the industrial age and stuff. It's very interesting that those kind of things. Ugh, that's horrible. And obviously, like,
And
there
how
are
many
there
more
are many
people-
stories like that.
Right.
You know?
How many more people that aren't in the annals of history were murdered because someone said, "Oh, it's a fairy.
You're a
it's
fairy."
a changeling." Yeah.
Yeah, so we experienced a story similar to this. Brian Holland wrote an amazing story in Pendragon.
In Pendragon. Paul
Yeah.
was telling me about it.
Yeah, an amazing story in Pendragon where this exact sort of thing happens. It's basically a mother that is experiencing what we would now call postpartum depression. Basically, just had a baby and disappears. And the father just starts saying that the fairy stole the wife and replaced the baby with a changeling. And
Yeah.
says, like, it's not my baby. That is, I reckon, like, that's not the baby we just had. That's a changeling. And there's like people that believe it and people that don't. But in Pendragon, most people believe it. You know what I mean? Like in that time. It's obviously it's a fantasy, but it's also like, there was a lot of mysticism that went around, in that time. And so very interesting.
If you want to make the Fae very scary, that's how you do it. The
That's how you
actual
do it.
real historical beliefs.
Yeah.
Truly is. Truly
You don't
is
really have to
terrifying.
go too far.
A lot of people also think that modern UFO mythology, especially in terms of the Greys, the aliens with the big eyes and the gray heads, and their abduction of people, is the new modern mutation of fairy
Of the
lore.
Fae.
Right? They used to say fairies would take people away into their fairy mounds to live in fairy for a while, and then they would send them back. That is, people think that today we think of, we've just transferred it to UFOs and aliens.
Interesting. And to explain things like, to explain away a bunch of different, what things could be that are really explained
To
by
explain
mental
why,
illness or
someone
mundane
might
situations.
claim that aliens anal probed him. You know what I mean? He needs an explanation. He needs to tell everybody, look, it was aliens.
Look, it was aliens.
But I wonder, like, UFO cranks are they're so not believed, right? In today's culture, we're like, oh, UFOs, you're crazy. Were people who believed in the Fae, like, as, initially disbelieved, or was it more popular back
I mean, I don't think it's that crazy. In terms of our pop
Found
culture.
the UFO crank.
I'm
Found
just saying,
him.
in terms of pop culture, like, there are fully produced documentaries that back all this shit up. That
There are
come out in the
definitely
last year or two.
UFOs. There are definitely UFOs. Is there alien abduction? I think is
Right.
a much more controversial,
Yes.
to put it
I
mildly.
mean, the Navy
Yes.
came out, what was it,
assumption.
like
No,
a few
agreed,
months
agreed,
ago
agreed.
and was like, yeah, there for sure are UFOs. And we were all like, guys, Not now. We have too much going on.
Yeah.
Save it.
I've got a friend who's deep into UFOs, and we're all worried about him. But the point I was going to make, to answer Mary Lou's question, did people believe back in the day? I mean, like, based on any kind of history reading I've done, even way back in Roman times and before, there were always like people who were rationalists who were like, this is a belief,
That
it's
doesn't make
not
sense.
real. And then there were always a bunch of pudding heads who thought that a woman needs to be murdered because she's started her own sewing business. So ask yourself today, are you one of the rationalists or are you one of the pudding heads?
Are
That's
you
what
a
you have
pudding
to
head?
ask yourself.
And on that note, let's wrap it up. This has been such a blast. Mary Lou, thank you so much for coming and hanging out
Thanks
with
for
us.
having me.
It was so fun. I would say we'd love to have you on again, but we already will.
But you're
Next
gonna.
Next
It's
week,
happening.
Whether
Mary
you
Lou.
like it or not.
I know, it's amazing. Next week, Mary Lou is going to host. How cool is that? She's going
I
to
can't
co-host with Jared.
have a
As
great time.
unfortunately, I'll be indisposed, but Mary Lou's going to be here next week for another whole episode. We're going to dig into that LARPing, among other things. Should be lots of fun stuff coming. But yeah, thanks guys for hanging out. Thanks for all the
Thank
callers.
you.
Great calls today. Fun new Druid builds to explore. Now I want to make a Druid. I'm like psyched.
Yeah, I
about
know.
This. This is
Yeah,
awesome.
me too.
Yeah. All right, take it easy, everybody. Have a good week, and we'll see you next
Bye-bye.
week. Later.
Bye.